Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? Well, if you've been watching my channel, and who wouldn't because it's fascinating, because it's about me, I've been checking out Powered by the Apocalypse games. I had a chance to run my first session of Uncharted Worlds the other night, which I hosted on my channel. And the night before that, I actually hosted on my channel when I played in a game called The Veil. I played that, I think, 3 times now, and I get to run it next time as part of our multi-game master experiment we're having with that. And I've been reading a whole bunch of Powered by the Apocalypse games. I've been talking to lots of people about them with various levels of experience, doing all kinds of reading and interfacing with other people. But something's been bothering me a little bit, and I've kind of come up with this little hypothesis, if you will. And here's the issue. If you listen to the conventional wisdom, the things that people say on the internet, people will say that Powered by the Apocalypse games fall into the narrativist camp. When you think of the big model, do games, the games that are specifically designed to do a specific thing, the games that promote either a simulationist creative agenda or a gamist creative agenda or a narrativist creative agenda, people will lump the Powered by the Apocalypse games into that narrativist camp. It's a story game. You're collaboratively narrating it and creating a story together, right? And I even made a video called, PBTA and the Narrative's Creative Agenda. But something just didn't seem right. The more I read, the more actual plays I watched of people that wrote the games, promoted the games, something just seemed a little off. Reading the game, and then we start to play the games, and just something doesn't seem like it adds up. And it started to feel to me like that I had been wrong, and that the more and more of the feel and what I looked at, it seemed like these games are really designed to promote or support a game's creative agenda. And I can hear the gasps already. But hear me out, and then you can call me crazy afterwards. Let's take a look at what's actually happening in these games. And first, look at the essays. I like to go back to the essays written by Ron Edwards if we're going to talk about this kind of stuff. And you look at things like, narrativism, where, we're going to create, via role play, a story with a recognizable story in like the Lit 101 sense. We're going to explore a premise, to create a theme. We're gonna try to resolve some kind of theme. That's what the role play and the narration in a narrativist game is supposed to be about. It's not just interfacing with a theme that's already there. So, taking that as the jumping off point, that's our litmus test for is it a narrativist game. Looking at like what actually happens in a Powered by the Apocalypse game, and one of the things that strikes me right off the bat, if you look at the dice probabilities, and I made a video about that, is one of the most advantageous places you can be in a Powered by the Apocalypse game is rolling dice. For the most part, you're going to at least get a partial success. You're going to get kind of move the story forward in an advantageous way for your character. And in some way, you can step on up and play the game. And how you're playing the game is narrating your way into a move where you're going to roll dice. So that's one way you can step on up and approach these games, or these games seem to have been designed to promote a gamist creative agenda, but that's not all. Then I realized part of what seemed to be happening in these games is a stepping on up to win the right to have narrative authority for a period of time, to be able to take control of reality of a certain part of the world, and just to define part of what the world is. That can be a game unto itself. And as I was thinking about that, I ran right in, just completely unrelated, I ran into an experiment that they ran on Reddit, I think for 72 hours last year, where they had this canvas, if you will, a digital canvas, and you were able to control the color of a pixel or what have you, and it became a game of sorts between the participants, and they were able to create pictures and then guard those pictures, but it was a bit of a competition and a game for control over that parts of that canvas. Very similar. So I see a game emerging there. But then, probably, the biggest game I see emerging in a Powered by the Apocalypse game is the creation of a cool story. Not exploring a theme, not exploring that premise, not creating a story in a Lit 101 sense, but creating a cool and fun and satisfying narrative. And especially if you watch the actual plays, you look at some of the examples in the books, and actually watch people play right next to you. you start to see this. Sometimes it's a competition, and sometimes it's a collaboration. How can we frame the scene and describe the scene and narrate the scene where it's really cool, it's really interesting, it has some interesting complications. It's not just about, winning something for our character, but it's, creating a really fun, satisfying story. Sometimes it is competition, but sometimes it's this game, stepping on up to play this game of, creating a cool, exciting piece of fiction. And that can be, once again, a game unto itself. And I just, went back, looked again at the definitions of narrativism, and it just didn't add up. Because narration does not equal narrativism. That's a common mistake. And so at the end of the day, it just, I continue, everything that I've observed and read and just watched, and participated in, still keeps on supporting this hypothesis I have that the game was designed, or Apocalypse World and all the derivatives, was designed to support a gamist creative agenda. The game becomes a narration. Game isn't through narrating, or narration becomes the game. Pretty interesting stuff. And I wondered to myself, Vincent Baker, wrote Apocalypse World. Is he sitting in his chair somewhere, just chuckling to himself as people are talking about how narrative this game is? I wonder, because he clearly understood the big model. So I'd love to talk to him sometime. That'd be really kind of neat, and ask, what was your intention when you wrote this game, when you wrote Apocalypse World, and what do you think about what's happened, with all the games that have used that as an engine? Interesting stuff. So maybe I'm crazy, maybe I'm not. What do you think about all that?